So I just wanted to thank you, Lincoln, for joining us today. My name is Khadija Hamidou, and I am the Executive Director for Workforce Planning Hamilton. We are doing these one-on-one interviews in connection with our Hamilton Youth Workforce, funded by the Ministry of Labor, Training, Skills and Development, as well as the Ontario province. So once again, we're here to just get these one-on-one interviews started to get a better understanding of youth and employment in the Hamilton region, as well as just getting some advice from people and organizations who really do that groundwork when it comes to youth and employment in the Hamilton area. So I will pass it over to my guest today, and then we can kind of just jump into some of the questions as we go.
Yeah, thanks, Khadija. I just want to say you guys are doing great work. This is a very important piece to community work out there. You need jobs. There's a lot of barriers out there, so this is great to have these conversations. Yeah, my name's Lincoln Cole. I've been in the community over 10 years now. I've been doing a lot of work, a lot of projects, a lot of community development. I'm a Provincial Youth Outreach Worker, so my job is to connect youth and families to positive resources in the community. For example, employment, it's a big one, recreation, mental health, shelters, food banks, pretty much any positive resources out there to help youth and families. We're out there to kind of bridge that gap and get them connected. Also with our role, we do a lot of outreach. Obviously now with COVID, the job role has changed a little bit, a lot working from home and virtually. But with the outreach, we are able to, go in communities, take part in barbecues, events that are happening. It could be in the downtown core, it could be in the East End, wherever the youth are. We just want to be a part of that, just to kind of build that relationship and that rapport, and get them connected. Having that trust and that rapport and that relationship is very, very important. It's hard to just kind of connect the youth. You kind of have to have a little bit of history with that youth for them to get connected. So that's my job in the community. Do a lot of coaching, around youth with coaching and mentorship. We're in the schools a lot, once again, before COVID. So before that, it was very easy, to engage youth and to say, hey, here's an employment program, check it out. It's on the community board, take a look at it. But now, we're faced with a lot of different barriers, and we have to resort to virtual programming, et cetera. So in terms of employment, like I said, you guys are doing great work. It's a very important piece. For us, we're finding it challenging as well, with employment opportunity out there. I know there's some, but there's very few. I resorted to a lot of interview prepping. So sometimes I run some sessions with youth. Actually, I have a session today with the youth, just prep an interview, doing mock interviews online, because that's how it is now. A lot of interviews are online, and there's a lot of points, key points that they could take from just having like practice on the computer, at home, right? So I've been doing that a lot with youth, and it's hard because it's hard to get a job. It's not as easy as how it used to be. So a lot of resume prepping with the youth, and a lot of just being familiar with what's going on out there. So that's why I think it's great to have this conversation with you and with your table and what you guys are doing, because it's needed. It's needed hugely out there. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lincoln. And I think with Hamilton Youth Workforce, our overall goal is to create a community-wide strategy to support high youth unemployment rates as we look into unemployment rates as a whole. So we're trying to use technology familiar to youth to assist with navigating labor market information, as well as just, some advice and anything that's revolving employment at this point and how to connect it with the youth population. So you were talking a little bit more about the success and some of the barriers that you guys have been facing in 2021, even 2020 at this point. So can you go into a little bit more detail about what are some of the successes your organization has experienced this year and last year?
Yeah, I would say success right now, I think it's getting more familiar with the online base. You still have to network. You still have to connect with community partners and agencies. And like I said, you just can't do it face to face, right? But we always had email. We always email. I feel I'm a little bit more texty now with the phone and getting on the phone and making those connections. So I feel that's a big success with our agency. It's just still being able to keep that connection going and to follow up. existing programs that we already had connections with and relationships with, and just to follow up with them to keep in touch over the phone, or having like these little virtual online sessions help, because they're trying to think of new ways, and when they come up with new ideas, sometimes we may not hear about it. So it's good to still follow up, and we could promote those things through our Instagram. So, and that's another success. A good little segue is our Instagram account. We're new to this. I never thought I would be so sucked into like Instagram and doing posts and all that. But it's cool. This is the new age stuff to begin with. So they're going to be doing it regardless. When it comes to Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, the Facebook, they're really good at all that. So now I feel there's opportunity for us to kind of learn from them and to see what they're doing and to see what interests they have. So when we got our Instagram account running, it was slow at first, and we're trying to figure out ways to promote it and to get our followers up, right? So we look at what other youth are doing, and we look at what other programs are doing, just to get an idea of what will catch their attention. And since then, our Instagram account has been, going pretty well. We still, I'm sure everyone wants to get their followers up, and that's always the goal. But I feel, just getting that message out there to what you want to promote, and to keep the community connected, and sort of, because you can't be out there maybe to get that presence, but your Instagram page is up and it's running, and that's always going nonstop. They could check that at 2 a.m. in the night, or or in the morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. It doesn't matter. It's available 24/7, right? So I feel being able to get familiar with like the Instagram has been great. We're looking into maybe TikTok. So I smile because I don't want to be the first to jump on it with the TikTok. We'll probably get another Yahoo worker to try that out. But it's just new tools that we could get familiar with and educate ourselves with that could better our connection with the community. So those have been some success. Like I said, we've been doing a lot of like online virtual stuff. So we'll have group virtual sessions pretty much all throughout the week. We'll have sessions, 2-hour sessions, where youth could drop in. We could chat about the topic, or we just chat about what's going on in their day, in their life, So those have been interesting. At the beginning, we were seeing numbers higher, but this pandemic's all over the place. It's up and down, So we've seen some numbers drop, but now we're just trying to find ways to kind of increase those numbers, since we're stuck working from home again. But I feel like it's been a success. The youth who have been showing up to our virtual sessions have been engaged. There's a lot of laughs, a lot of smiles. And I think there's a good sense of, the comfortability, building and developing with them, because sometimes we don't tell them you don't have to have your camera on. That's cool. You could just come in and listen if you want, and just listen to us chat. But we've seen, youth who have been, a little bit shy at first, and then kind of open up, and they have their camera, then they're raising their hand, they're talking more. So even though it's online, they're still getting that, that personal skills that they kind of like trickle over to an interview, right? And just being comfortable with talking to people, because this is how it's going to be when they have an interview right now. It's going to be online. For the most part, right? So they have to get more familiar and being comfortable with, even with how to use Zoom and all the different tools online. An interview could be on so many different platforms now. So I feel that's been a success. And out of that, virtual sessions, I have youth that, like I said, they're not so comfortable with a group. So I'll do a virtual session on the side with them and just do some resume building, look at their resume, go over their resume, help them fix it up, and then do like a lot of mock interviews and get them prepped for interviews. So I have some youth had some job interviews, and they said it went well, and they never got the job, but it's good. It's a good experience, and I'm still happy to see that some of my youth are still getting that job interview experience, even though they don't get the job. Obviously, we want them to get the job, but even just getting those skills is great. So I would say that those are good success. Our YOW team has been, like I said, more out there presently in the virtual world. They say. So that's been good for us. Our faces are still out there and still relevant. So I would say those are some of our success that's happening.
Absolutely.
Just getting a lot more familiar
And
Instagram.
check out Yao on Instagram. Like I said, there's a lot of great information out there that Yao has been posting, specifically their virtual programming calendar in itself. I think that the shift that Yao's done regarding these restrictions and these COVID restrictions have been great. So being able to like post that out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing now to kind of really go with the times. And I think that's really a success in itself. So kudos to Yao regarding that as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So when we talk about employment, what are some of the current recurring themes that you're seeing regarding youth and employment right now? What are some of the I guess the jobs that youth are currently looking for from your perspective?
Well, I would say, from the beginning, I've been noticing, and that's when, like I said, COVID's been a roller coaster right now, but there was a pocket there where I felt there was a lot more, pre-employment training and stuff happening. And then there was a lot of incentives with those pre-employment training. So that kind of drew the attention of a lot of my youth. And I've seen that with all my youth, actually, who have been looking for jobs, is when there's a little bit of an incentive and like a pre-employment attachment with it, where they could get familiar and comfortable with what's going on in terms of like a job search. I feel they're a little bit more engaged, and I feel they're a little bit more willing to, open up and to kind of take that step into looking for a job. So I feel those things really help. Those programs come and go, obviously. So I feel it's kind of hard finding those programs that would give those incentives. It's whether if it's groceries, they get a grocery card at the end, or if there's, they get paid for a certain amount of hours just for signing up at the program and looking for a job. That kind of motivates them a little bit. So I think that's a big trend I've been noticing with the pre-employment stuff. It's been great. Another thing is just the resume help. I feel a lot of youth that I've encountered, their resume is outdated or they don't have a resume to begin with, but they have that drive or that passion to look for a job. So I've been seeing a lot of that, and resumes could be easy. Sometimes it can be hard to make.
Yeah.
Everyone's at a different level when it comes to computer skills or knowledge about how to make a resume. So I just noticed that's been a little trend is with the resume building, that most of my youth would need to update the resume and get that help. And sometimes, like I said, there's been times I could go into the community. Right now, I can't. So doing that has been kind of a little bit of a challenge,
Mhm.
just helping with the resume. But we do it virtually as best we can. I'll type some stuff up for them, let them speak, and get their opinion on how their resume should look, right? Because I want them to learn as well. So good, that's a trend. Let me think of any other trends with employment. No, I feel like really everyone wants a job right now.
Yeah.
It's always been that everyone wants a job. They want to work. I feel people are at the point where they're kind of getting bored. Youth they're at home. We know they're gaming out. They're just kind of doing nothing. The gyms closed. They can't go to the gyms and stuff. A lot of my youth like to be in the YMCA's and at the gyms and stuff. So that's been a kind of turnaround for them, not being able to access all like the facility there. So they've been at home. They've been bored. So I feel that's kind of like give them a little kick in the butt to say, hey, I need to find a job. I can't just be sitting here all day. I need to find a job. So that's been it's been a good trend.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that when it comes to like finding a job right now, youth there's no specific job that youth are looking for. I think it's just an overall need for employment. So, as we go through these, I think we've really tried to emphasize, trying to find a job that youth will connect with. And I think that's a big piece of it. But then also just trying to connect them with employment as a whole is just the obvious need here. So that resume building piece and those soft skills that go into before employment is also clearly a need right now. So there's a lot of different programs that are happening, and I'll definitely be sure to share that with you as we continue these conversations, because I think that's where the need is that as we have these interview sessions where you're showcasing the need from your point of view, and then we hear from pathway employment where they do have these workshops and these resume building opportunities. I think that's where we can see that collide happening. So we were able to talk about some of the successes that are happening through social media and these online interactions, also the trends that are going on currently with youth and employment. What are some of the barriers that you're facing other than, that face-to-face connection that you're having with youth? What are some of the other barriers that you're currently facing regarding youth and employment and just youth advocacy as a whole?
Yeah, definitely, like you said, like obviously the face to face is the challenge, but other than that, I would say like it comes down to like their skills in general. Like a lot of youth are at a different skill level, and sometimes you like to be there by their side to kind of guide them through it, and to if it's building their resume, just as simple as filling out or going to like I just had a youth and I'm like you have to go to Canadian Tire. You could ask them if they're hiring. And then they said to fill out the online application. So I'm like, you have to print that off, and just not being having that access to a printer, and or where to go to print it, and I would be able to print it and go meet up with them and just hand them what it needs to be done. But I feel there's tools that's missing from youth at home. We can't expect them to have a printer, a computer side by side. A lot of youth just have their phone, and the phone's limited to, depending on their phone, right? So that's been, I would say a little bit of a barrier with youth. I was saying another barrier would be I guess, the timing with like, the social media and when they're available, it's kind of
Availability.
availability,
Yeah.
with youth, right? When it comes to like the social media, right? That's how we're connecting with them. Sometimes they're on there, like I said, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Mhm.
That's the time they're up, right? So maybe if there's not something that maybe we posted later on or earlier during the day, right? But they may miss that first excitement of the post. Yeah, it's still there. They can go check on it, but who's to say that they're checking up on all the youth stuff, that's going on in
Exactly.
the community. So I feel, just the timing of stuff, we have to kind of get familiar with, their timing more. And I don't know if there's like charts out there or stats where we could track, when our youth is more engaged on social media. There's certain times,
Insights.
insights, right? Those
Hmm.
are all great. So maybe, I'm sure there is, but maybe that's something that we could be more familiar with. So I would say that could be a barrier on our end, but we could work to decrease those barriers and minimize those barriers. Uh,
No, I
yeah, we
really
want.
like the fact that you said that availability piece because I think that that's been a common theme throughout these conversations is that, even when school was happening and, people weren't doing necessarily online learning, but during those school hours is also work hours. So we're expecting youth to be a part of the conversation during our work hours, whereas that's not a possibility, right? They're done school at around 3:30 p.m. And that's when we're kind of starting to log off of work as well. So trying to get a better understanding of, youth being able to connect at a time where they're most comfortable is the key as well. So I definitely see that being a
Yeah.
huge barrier between organizations that are focusing on youth work as well as connecting youth to us as well.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say too, a lot of youth that we work with, we can't forget that there's a lot of mental health that may be going on. We work with a lot of, unconnected youth and youth who may be at risk, right? So, those youth want jobs as well, obviously, and there's a mental health piece that needs to be looked at first, right? Because with the setting and the environments now, like I said, some youth are just stuck at home in their room and, they want a job, but they're not ready to present themselves as a job. And there's a lot of little things to do first. Maybe they're stressing, they're going through depression, there's anxiety levels. So those things are very important. It's hard to send a youth to a job interview when they have all that going on in the back of their head. Yes, we see that getting a job is great, but the mental health piece is definitely going on, and we're seeing it more now just with everyone kind of being at home. That's, we all have our mental health stages, right? But seeing that with the youth and trying to help them, guide them through that way to say, hey, once we get this done, then we have the job piece, we can really work on. So with the youth I work with, mental health is, it's a big part of it, right? It's a big piece. So just kind of like connecting with that, and making sure, the priorities, like, hey, we got to figure this out first. You got to call your doctor. You got to talk to your doctor. I'm just working with youth right now. Same scenario. He's got to call his doctor up. We got to work with that. I know you want a job. We could maybe do some resume prepping or whatever first, but it's just, kind of figuring out what to do first when it comes in terms of mental
Priority.
health, yeah, and priority. And yes, with COVID, my one youth, he had a job. He was working up at Lime Ridge, worked for about a month, almost a month, and then got the layoff because of the lockdown and restrictions again. And he's kind of thrown off right now when it comes to looking for a job. He thinks this is just gonna keep happening, right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
affecting his mental health a lot too, right? So that's been a barrier. I wouldn't say so much. I'm sure other people are seeing the same thing, but it's definitely been a little bit of a trend and barrier that I've been seeing with my youth. Mhm.
Yeah, youth and mental health right now is something that we at Workforce Planning Hamilton is starting to, once again look into a little bit further. We recently did a mental health and employment webinar where we looked into just having people transition back into work and how that may be affecting their mental health. But we know with these restrictions, as you just mentioned, youth are constantly getting these jobs and starting out, but then are the first ones to also get laid off because of these changes with COVID. So that in itself can really affect mental health as you
Mhm.
continue on with
Yeah.
these job searching. And then, your participation rate, it starts to lower. Your understanding or even your ability to want to be out there also starts to go down a little bit. So I think that youth mental health is something that we definitely need to have a larger conversation on. So I appreciate you bringing that up as one of the barriers, because that's definitely the conversation that we have on these side talks, but not really face to face. So thank you for that. That was actually a really great point. So when you're looking at youth and employment, once again, if you had, let's say, maybe 20 youth right in front of you saying, I need a job, what types of jobs do you see them wanting to go into now? Because, there's at this point, we've seen that there's a huge connection with youth and retail work. But what other types of jobs specifically do you hear that you say that they want?
I see a lot of babysitting jobs. Like I actually have a little mock
Same.
interview coming up later this evening, and I'm working with a youth, and she wants to get heavily involved in like babysitting and like the early years type thing, like working with
Early years.
yeah, early years and stuff like that. So I don't know if that comes from just they see a lot of that in the community beforehand, right? And they want to get involved. They see us working with community and youth and all that, and they want to get involved. It could be any type of passion they have, but I've seen a lot with like babysitting. I think maybe youth are looking at other ways to kind of get jobs because they know that in the general way is not really working right now. Of just going out there with the resume and handing it out, like it works, but it doesn't really work right now. They're stuck at home. They don't really have the opportunity to get out for whatever reason. So I feel like they're finding different ways to kind of do that. And she went around with a letter. We helped write a letter, and she dropped it around in her neighborhood
Okay, nice.
saying, yeah, and just around our neighbors saying, hey, this is my qualifications. I'm looking if anyone needs any help with babysitting. I'm in the community. I'm from this school. Da 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 da. So she was working on it. I thought it was a great idea. Just exploring different opportunities of how to kind of seek for a job. So yeah, definitely babysitting. I have a lot of youth talking about smart serve, right?
Mm,
But then so that's kind of a big one where you get the smart serve in the food industry. I feel that's huge with my youth.
yeah.
Some of my youth, and for me, I feel like that's an industry where or a field where it's kind of easier to there's a lot of fast food places, right? There's a lot of like first time job places that are great to get your foot in the door with and kind of build that experience for your resume. So a lot of youth, when they say food, I'm like, hey, McDonald's is great. Don't knock McDonald's. You can work at McDonald's. You can build up there, get that on your resume, get some structure in your day. There's a lot of different fast food places and a lot of McDonald's out there. McDonald's does a really good job too of hiring youth. I feel they're really great at that. I know a couple of the managers, so they call me sometimes for references and stuff. So it's I feel having that good connection with some of the employment or employers to say out there is great and it helps a lot. But food, food industry, smart serve, the babysitter I'm seeing that come up, with a lot of female youth. Not saying guys can't babysit, but I'm seeing a lot with the female youth.
Yeah.
And recreation, a lot of I'm seeing the cities just coming out. They're hiring for like summer jobs and stuff. They come out early, so that's one thing I always refer to. The youth want
Yes.
to get involved in recreation.
Yeah,
So
summer jobs are now open for submission of applications. So I think that's also another great leap that you can kind of get them towards. But one thing I really liked that you said was the babysitting piece of how your youth was just going around their neighborhood and just dropping off their resumes in that way. So like there's a lot of work that can be done in your own community and even in your own neighborhood. So like we just had a bunch of snow come through. And a lot of people are elderly, don't have the capacity to be shoveling all this snow. I know that it was difficult for me, and I just had this small little area. So even just putting out your resume in that sense, where it's like, hey, I can do a little task for you around just snow shoveling and just getting things together. And I think that is another way for you to really connect. And it's also easy for transportation. It's just in your neighborhood, you can walk over. So it also contributes to physical activity piece where it's like you're not only walking to your job, but it's also in the community, so you're also helping out in that way. So I really love that piece. I just have one last question for you,
oh
Lincoln.
yeah,
And
sure. Yeah.
so the last question that I have for you is overall, what advice would you be giving or other organizations, other youth in the Hamilton region regarding employment?
I would give, advice to explore new opportunities. I feel right now there's no real right or wrong way to kind of look for a job. I feel, kind of step outside your comfort zone a little bit, get involved with virtual programming that's happening. If you could sit at a table, even just to listen in, you don't have to talk, you don't have to put on your camera, just to get comfortable with the virtual world, because I feel that's the way things are going right now. It's a lot online. A lot of the interviews are online, so you need to get familiar with that, and get familiar with that way. Not to say lose all those skills, face-to-face skills. Those are great to have. We need those, right? But right now, it's looking like we're doing a lot of this online. So step outside your comfort zone. It's a little bit easy. If you think about it, all you gotta do is make a couple clicks on your computer. Boom, you're in a meeting, right? You don't have to walk and get up and take the bus or find transportation. So maybe, if you look at it in that way, you could take advantage of these opportunities. And like I said, just get familiar with the online world. And yeah, in terms of employment, you got to take a step forward. You have to try, you have to put in that effort. In any way, there's a lot of barriers right now, maybe more than before. So you have to still try to take that step forward and get involved. There's a lot of stuff online, so get involved, seek out, ask questions. We're here, you're here. There's a lot of agencies and youth workers out there, so ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask, and get involved for sure. That's what I want to say.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Lincoln. Thank you to Yao. Thank you to Wesley for being a part of this conversation with Workforce Planning Hamilton. I think the last thing that we want, you just mentioned virtual connecting, and we are going to hope to have a virtual youth committee roundtable conversation with all these other youth organizations that are focusing on employment, just to get everybody together to have a larger conversation on the success and barriers to employment for youth. So once again, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. And we hope to continue this conversation as these constant changes happening virtually and in the community as a whole. So thank you, Lincoln.
Problem.
Perfect.